Hey guys, welcome to Careers Uncorked. This is your co-host Sid.
And this is your co-host Sharfuz.
At Careers Uncorked, we host some amazing guests and hear their incredible stories.
And we're super excited to have you join us today.
Hey Sharfuz, how's it going? Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday, dude. It's good. It's good. It's been a normal week so far, but we have a very amazing session planned for our audience today. So that's what I've been really excited about for the whole month.
Me too, for the whole month. I've been excited for the past 2 weeks. I was so excited when we finally came to the title. I was very curious as to how you sort of imagined the scenario of the blizzard and the wine.
Yeah. Oh, really? You want? Okay. I felt when I talked to our guest at first, and I got to see her how she is as like a personality. I thought she is such a badass persona. She is somebody, and I connected Rochester. Like she's somebody who would walk through a blizzard, but while she's sipping wine. That's how she is.
That's very elegant.
That's the most creative thing I've ever done in my life so far. Not gonna lie.
No, that's great. I love it. It's so creative that I had to think twice before being like, oh, what's happening? Like blizzard and wine?
Yeah, no, it's the Rochester effect, I guess. But yeah.
All right. So let's speak a little about the guests. So about 2 weeks ago, we got on a call with our very own Gwen Greene. She's an alumni from the University of Rochester. We actually thought she was sitting in a park, so we were like, oh, let's not disturb her. But it ended up being her backyard, and that's when I realized that, oh, I've been thinking in the wrong direction my whole life. Like, I really need to reevaluate where I am.
Yeah, that was a great conversation with Gwen. I was like, I remember we were so nervous talking to her, but she was so open to talking to us. That call went for like an hour, and I was like, oh my god, she's like, so yeah. So we're super excited. How about we bring Gwen to the stage, because I know our audience is like super excited to hear from her. And yeah, let's kick it off.
Hey Gwen, how's it going?
Here I am. I thought you meant I'd walk through a blizzard to get a glass of wine. It also resonated with me.
Oh,
I'm excited to see you two. I'm thrilled to do this.
Okay.
We're so excited to have you here, Gwen. You don't understand. Yeah. We met you once before, and this is the second time. I never thought we'll ever see each other again, but this is absolutely insane.
Yeah,
story of my life. Glad to be with you boys.
Thank you so much, Gwen, and we're super excited. So let's, Sid, let's kick this off.
Yeah, let's go. So Gwen, do you want to just give a brief background about yourself? Like, we can't find the best words to put it together, so we just want you to give a brief background about yourself, what you're doing right now, especially with the community and stuff like that.
Sure, it'd be my pleasure. I work, as I've done for almost 40 years, in financial services. I started off my career about 40 years ago, and I was called a stockbroker. I do the same thing at my third firm, but the title just keeps evolving. So now I'm called a financial advisor, and I never remember if it's advisor, ER, or OR. But it's all the same thing. I manage money for individuals. I suggest what they buy and sell. And I think of that is indeed my full-time job, although I do it remotely now. I also am on the board of trustees of the U of R, and I think of the U of R as my real full-time endeavor, as everybody knows. In fact, I met someone who said, I didn't realize you actually had another job. I thought the U of R was it. So I'm on the board of trustees. I chair annual giving. And as you and I know, I pitched you two guys actually before the call started, telling you it was so glad to meet you. And now you got to do something for the U of R. I also, let's see what else I do. I have the privilege of having the Green Center at the U of R, which brings me the greatest joy. And then I just mentor. I just love mentoring. I think I have, other than you two fellows, I think I have 4 calls scheduled this week with young U of R alums or students who want to talk about career. So I do a lot of that. And then I live full time in the country, where you saw me. My backyard's a funny idea when you live in rural America. It's the back of my property and you didn't see the cows. So that's what I try and do every chance I get. I try and sit outside. We're a little late and it's a little dark, or I'd have done it. But here I am. So that's my life in a nutshell.
That's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
I love the idea of having cows in the backyard. I think you're putting my dreams into reality right now. So I'm just lining up where I want to be in the future. And I think you're right about there.
Yeah, so you wake up and you see a cow in your bedroom and you're like, wait, what am I? Where am I? Did I drink too much last night? Where am I?
Okay, the cow stays outside. This is not like that old Billy Crystal movie where the cow comes into the house. The cows are outside.
Yeah, the cows break
in.
in.
The glass, you say, aren't they adorable? And then you go back to your cocktail. It's not really interactive with cows.
Wow.
Although you do realize that one day they'll be off to college, and like every kid, they'll never call. But
Yep.
it's part of my life.
Very true. Yep. Shafuz, no cows in the house.
No, all right. We need cows at Rochester, but that's a different point.
All right, Gwen. So just a little about you as a person. We're curious to learn about like what are your hobbies, just like outside of work and outside all your involvement with the U of R. Like, what is something you like doing in your free time?
Give me a for instance. Like
For
what?
instance, in the evenings, how do you unwind?
Okay. A glass of rosé in the summer, a glass of red wine in the winter.
Wow.
I watch, as do most people, I started off watching every possible crime show on Netflix. I get into every single series from all over the world, and I would try watching them in their original language and then reading subtitles, but I understand a few other languages. So I did that for a while. Now I read every crime novel from all over the world. But I have the amazing capacity of forgetting them the minute I'm done. So I just maybe read the same things. Kindle fortunately says, you already bought that one. So I tend to read. You know what? I chill out in the evening. I don't have hobbies. Like I don't make model airplanes. And I don't do macrame. And I barely cook. I just talk all day to people. I interact all day to people. And then at night, I see people and interact again. And then I'm tired enough. I finally I have a sister on the West Coast who says to me, wait a second, it's 1 o'clock where you are. Why are you up? Go to sleep. And I think, okay. And then I go to sleep and start again. So no, I don't have like craft hobbies.
Okay.
Embarrassed to say, but not really. When would I do them? What would I do? And who would care? Who would want to see my macrame?
I mean, cows in the backyard is kind of a hobby, so I would account for that.
Yeah.
That's a hobby.
You know, that's why there are veterinarians, because when the cows need something, you call the vet.
You call the vet.
I have watched baby cows be born.
Yeah.
I have watched them from afar with the binoculars. It's an extraordinary experience. And then they're gone and they don't talk to me anymore. So I garden a lot. I do things like that. I do. I have a garden. I love gardening. My tomatoes are in bloom, but it's just an activity to keep me outside.
Gotcha. That's really cool. So you mentioned a little about crime. I'm not sure if you would count this as crime, but there's a Netflix show that I recently watched, which was very impactful to my life. It was called Tiger King. I don't know. Have you seen that one?
No, I chose not to. But tell me why you liked it.
I didn't like it. I was just very intrigued with like the whole setup of it. Yeah. It was supposed to be about tigers, but ended up being about people instead, which is why it got my attention, because it was sort of a drama almost about like two different people and their identities, whereas I was hoping it would be more about wildlife.
Yeah, it was not about. I did not like it at all.
Okay, you need the Nature Channel for that.
What Discovery every now and then, you know?
Discovery.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll make a note of that.
I like the ones that are international intrigue and they really hold your attention from episode to episode, and you get to the end and you realize none of it made sense. But it really captivated you, and you couldn't wait to see how they resolve things until then you realize when you got to the end, wait, who was that person and why did they show up? But they do the job. They make you tired, then you go to sleep. I think that's the job.
All right.
Kind of lifelong learning.
That's amazing. So Gwen, another question I have is like going back to the time while you were in college at the University of Rochester, what was your life like? Like, how would you describe Gwen as a person in college?
You know what? The U of R was very aspirational for me. I'd grown up in Westchester County, which is just outside of New York City. My dad had died when I was young, and we really didn't have much money. My mom was supporting me and a younger sister, and I knew I would go to school within New York State. We had something called New York State Region Scholarships. and you kind of got one. If you were reasonably intelligent, you got one. So my field was limited, and I had a guidance counselor whom I think somebody knew somebody, and he said to my mother in one of those moments like The Graduate, where they say plastics to Dustin Hoffman, which you guys probably never heard of, but the older people listening will know what I mean. He said to my mother, University of Rochester. And my mother said, perfect. We had no idea what it was. We had no idea where it was. I couldn't afford to make those college trips that kids now do. But I looked at the pictures and I looked at Rushree's library and I thought, this is college. This is what college looks like. And so it was my school that I really wanted to go to. We couldn't afford it. I got in, I got scholarships, I got loans, I worked. The first day on campus, I must say, I drove up with my mom and sister. I took a look at Rushree's. I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. I thought I was at the most beautiful place on the earth. It was farthest that I'd ever been away from home. We drove up the thruway. It was about a 6-hour drive. And every time we'd stop for gas, my mother would see a bumper sticker with the U of R sign on it. She would say, oh, my daughter's going there. We're going to the University of Rochester. One of those people ended up marrying my roommate. So those connections matter. Network early. Not me, but he married my roommate. And that was a better fit. They belonged with each other. That was perfect. And so I got to Rochester. I was excited. I wasn't lonely. I'd gone to summer camp, so I was used to being away. At that point, all the women lived in Susan B. I mean, we just all lived there together. And we had curfews, I might add. A very strange concept because the men had no curfews. But back in the 60s, the women had curfews.
Wow.
And men could not come above the main floor. And there were all those rules that I'm sure sound absurd to you young folks, but it's all we knew. And our parents were really pleased that we had all those rules. There'd be one telephone on the hall. And I loved college. I thought I'd be a math major. I took my first math course. I said, this is so beyond me. And there are people who are so smart. So I then became a French major, which is a great major. You read a lot of wonderful literature. I studied a little of everything. I mean, that's sort of the way it was. We didn't have the amazing Renaissance plan. We didn't have the option of double majors. I studied French thinking I'd teach high school French. Teaching was a kind of career that my generation of women aspired to. We were teachers or nurses. And one of my roommates became a stewardess to see the world, which I really thought was the wisest choice. And so I had a ball at college. I loved it. I thought they were great years. I was a perfectly average student. I worked hard, though. I studied hard. And then my junior year, they built the towers, which was the first co-ed dorm in America, which many people may not know. And I was asked to write the Constitution. To this day, I have no idea why. But I did. And one of the positions we took, almost new wave feminism, was if men and women are going to live there and men don't have curfews, women can't have curfews. So the compromise was junior and senior women stopped having curfews, but freshmen and sophomores still living in Susan B did. So this was an evolution in the mid-60s. And it was wonderful. And when I left, I couldn't get a teaching job. I went to an employment agency. I got a job at Dun Bradstreet, and then the rest was history.
Wow. That's such a beautiful story. I think that teaching aspect has stuck with you till now. I mean, all the things you do with mentorship and with advising people, I think it's so impactful.
Yeah.
I love it. I don't know that I'd have liked being a teacher, but I love doing it now and not answerable to anyone. My job, the job I've had for the past 40 years, I'm a commission salesman. I haven't had a salary in 40 years.
Wow.
And I realize I love that independence, so that if I have an amazing day, it's my day.
Yeah.
If I have a horrible day, it's my day. Take full credit and accept the responsibility. I think I've learned it without realizing that's what I would learn.
You have the dream job. You're your boss, which is like perfect.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just love like how you just like that mentorship and the teaching aspect that just suits you so well, like because you've been being that mentor and that guide since when you graduated from UFR. So that's beautiful. And I was also gonna say, that your reaction to Rush Rees, that's what a lot of like I personally felt that coming in as an international student, and a lot of other students feel that as well. Like it's so beautiful. And just like dying and feeling like you're in heaven. I was like, it was really pretty.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of nights me and Sid, we were studying and we felt like we were dying because there was an exam the next day. It didn't feel like heaven, but it was fun.
You know what? I love the library, and we all studied there, and we went in the stacks, and it just was such a critical part of life. And when they dedicated the Green Center, they held the dedication in Rush Rees. And to me, that was really full circle. I thought there couldn't have been a more appropriate place to celebrate it because it meant so much to me. I think it's the focal point of the campus. It always has been.
Yeah, absolutely, Gwen. That's thanks for sharing that. And I think that's kind of takes me to our next thing we want to learn is that so in college, a big journey is to find your passion and your interest and what you want to do as a career. That's what every student face. And when you graduated at your early stages of your career, and you were a French major, then you were in different roles over time.
Yeah.
What
by the way, I was clueless.
Okay.
I really didn't. Nobody ever said to me, what do you want to do? All my mother ever said is, you'll go to work. So I really didn't fantasize about jobs. I mean, teaching was as far as I got. Nobody would hire me. And then I thought, I'm a French major. I'm fluent. I'll go to the UN. The problem is at the UN, there are French people who speak English as well as I do. So as great as I thought my French was, as masterful as it worked in restaurants, or when I got to go in the summer and visit France, it paled in terms of really being bilingual. So I couldn't think of a thing to do with it. And I didn't think about a career. I just thought about a job. I had loans to pay back. Interestingly, back in the day when I went to school, we didn't take out the loans. Our parents did. That's how it worked. So my mother, who could ill afford it, took out all the loans. Now, each year I prided myself on having more scholarship, less loan. And I worked summers doing incredibly mundane jobs just to make money. But I wanted to make money and pay my mother back, which I was finally able to do when I got to Wall Street. And I just wanted to live on my own. I had 2 roommates in a 1-bedroom apartment, my first apartment, a great building, but we were putting locks on the refrigerator. It got a little hostile. And then slowly I had better and better jobs. I just wanted someone to hire me. So Dun Bradstreet, who was training people to be credit reporters, I can't think of a less boring job, frankly, but they would pay me, and they wanted liberal arts majors. And I needed money to pay rent. So I took that. I then actually went to Wall Street early on as everybody's assistant. Then it was the 70s. It was the time of Kent State and Cambodia. And many of us became real activists. I mean, that was a really bad time for America, and it was a really bad time for young people. And I suddenly thought, how can I be working on Wall Street? I think I was working on a study that was analyzing the most effective ways to slaughter chickens for a meat packing company. And I thought, I am so above this. This is not what the world is about. I need to do something meaningful. So there was then a mayor in New York City, John Lindsay, who was in the Kennedy mold. He was tall and patrician and elegant and very enticing to work for. So I got a job. I actually, through a guy I was dating, I got a job, and I was suddenly director of tourism for the city of New York. Again, a job for which I had 0 qualifications, but the right boyfriend at the right time in the right place. And I believe life is kind of capricious. You just grab that brass ring whenever it comes around. So I had this great job surveying sidewalk cafes. Again, high pressure job. Go eat at sidewalk cafes every day. But I learned more and more what I kind of liked and what I did well. And I did a few other things. And then Lindsay, unfortunately, left office to run for Senate. So I was out of politics. And I thought, I love TV news. I think that could be a career. And again, I sort of cold called a guy who lived in my neighborhood who was on a local news station. I said, "You looking for people? I need a job." And he said, "Why don't you come in and meet a few people?" And I was still at that age where I could talk myself into anything. So I convinced them that I would be a great assistant to the consumer affairs reporter. I would fight for people. The kind of people who said, "I opened my refrigerator door and the Martians come through." I would say, "Okay, let me see what we can do about it. Next call." Maybe it was a little more stable. And that was my job. I loved it. I had a ball being on television. I worked for a couple of stations, and then I got fired. And I learned, I think I told you when we first chatted, for years I lied about it. People would say, "Why'd you leave television?" A really fair question. And I don't know, I made something up until finally my brother-in-law said to me, "You were fired. Why aren't you admitting that?" And it was like, okay, this 1,000-pound weight lifted from my shoulders. And then, of course, everyone in the room had a story about being fired. It's a rite of passage. And then I thought, okay, Gwen, it's time to find a real job. And I went back to Dun Bradstreet because I had left on very good terms, worked there again, and slowly then realized I can sell. I was selling credit reports. Not exciting, but I had fun. And I realized, oh my God, people say yes. I can get people to say yes to me, and I'm sincere and I mean it. And then I thought, I am just gonna find a job on Wall Street. I talked to everyone I knew who worked on Wall Street. I got a job at what was then Smith Barney in a training program, and I was off to the races. I found my place. I thought I loved it. I didn't know anything about business particularly, but I could sell, and I had passion, and I cared about people. And I would suggest that's what's made my career work, and that's why I also fundraise successfully. If I believe in something, I just want the world to believe in it. And I want people to do what's best for them. And certainly in my business, I want people to do what's best for them. And in fundraising, I want people to do what's best for the world. And I just love doing it. I love getting people to say, "You know what? You're right." Because I go in believing them. And that's my life. And that's what I'm
That was I think that was such a great way you just walked us through that early stage of your life, Gwen. I really could picture some of that experiences you shared from the TV station to Dun Bradstreet, the Dun Bradstreet again, and then just talking about your selling experiences, which you discovered in Wall Street, right? And I know, Sid, you have your own questions, but I just have this, out of curiosity, I have a very short question for you. What do you think were some of the skills you may have discovered yourself, or you may have developed in that early career that you probably have helped you? Like when you were just out of college, are there particular skills you discovered about yourself or attributes?
You know what? Yes. And I still learn every day to kind of tweak them a little bit. I mean, I think I was always outgoing. You don't suddenly become that. I was always outgoing. I was always sort of a leader, but not like, "Oh my God, she's so inspiring, we'll follow her anywhere." More like, "Come on, follow me. I know I'm right," kind of leader. And I learned as the years went on that I could take on this role in life, that people would listen to me and follow my advice, but I had to refine how I did it. I had to be sure of my reason, and I had to think through how best to achieve that. I couldn't, look, it was very hard being a woman in my business initially. It still is. There's so few women in finance. When I started we had training classes, there were 5 women out of 20 people. And I may have been the only one who survived in the business. One woman was a social worker, and she really wanted to help people. And in finance, your goal ultimately is not to help people. Your goal is to make money for your firm and your clients and ultimately for yourself. So she blew out really quickly. And I just had to learn how to get stuff done in effective ways. Not to get hurt, not to personalize it. And women do. I will tell you, at this stage of life, if I get in an argument with someone, I do personalize it. And if it's with a man, I go home, I obsess about it, I think about it all night. I go back the next day ready to revisit it And invariably, with all due respect to the men listening in, the man has absolutely forgotten what we even talked about. Women are just wired differently. We personalize everything. And I had to learn, let that go. Or, you know, get it off your chest, tell your husband. I remember the first time I ever had a martini in my life. My late husband had been in the business. He'd been on the floor of the exchange and he had far more experience. And I came home in 1987 after the first crash. And I was a basket case because, of course, everybody had lost their money. And I walked in the door and he said to me, "Are you okay?" He had just retired earlier that year. I said, "Well, not great." He said, "Let me make you a martini." I said, "A martini? Never had a martini." He said, "Trust me, it'll work." And it did. So, that was my first of many crashes. I learned to deal with them better. I learned to take a deep breath. I learned that if I want to get something, I have to think about what will be most effective in that situation. And it will go from situation to situation to situation. I'm sitting in the studio of my late husband. He was a painter. You can see a bit of a painting behind me. My office was right upstairs. I would be on the phone all day. He would be trying to ignore me. And sometimes I'd get off a call and he would say, "I don't know how you do it." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "How do you stay so patient? I can tell the other person's making you nuts, but you are calm and you are patient. You are telling everyone they're your best friend." And I said, "Because that's how I get stuff done. It's what works." So it's a lot of learning how to get stuff done and how to, if someone says to me, "I hate that idea," how to say, "You know what, that's exactly why I want to talk to you," and then pivot. And I've learned that over the years with fundraising as well. When someone says, I hated that teacher, I hated my courses, that's exactly why you and I should talk, because I want to talk about the other reasons that you should care. And I do that with clients. I do that with traders. I do that with anyone who disagrees with me until they agree.
Wow.
That's my goal. Don't you agree?
Yeah, we do.
You've convinced us.
Gwen, you really convinced us. That was amazing. And I was just thinking, because I remember like the first call we had, you mentioned something about this life hack where if somebody disagrees with you, you say something so you have the stage to convince them again. And I think I was trying to remember what that hack was, but I think you just said it right now, like how you just said, like, okay, that's why we should talk. And like, I love it. I just love it. Like, it's just the art of like.
Well, because if I think, look, I would never try and talk someone into something that's not right for them. Or I might find out along the way that it's not right for them. And I have to learn to pivot. I think there is a Wall Street personality. I have it. It is, you make decisions. I don't have a lot of time to deliberate when I make a decision. I'm going to buy a stock. I'm going to sell a stock. I can't spend the night thinking about it. The world can change. But I have to be able to say I'm wrong and pivot. And I say I'm wrong all the time. I apologize all the time. It's also part of being on commission. I can't turn and blame someone else. In fact, if my assistant makes a mistake, I'll own it. I don't want them to be upset. I can tolerate saying to someone, "I can't believe I screwed up. I am so sorry. How do we make it better?" Yeah. Now, it makes me a little short-tempered when I'm dealing with consumer people, because I say to them, all you're supposed to say is, "I'm really sorry. How do we make it better?" Yeah. But that's what I want. I want everyone happy. I do. I want them all happy. And if I'm part of that process, then I really feel invested in it. Yeah. I want them to learn. Look, I still learn. I'll hang up from this call with you and I'll still think, I can't believe I said that. I could have done that better. But, that's, I think, how you learn. That's lifelong learning in my book. Keep learning about yourself and how to just be that trite phrase, be your best self, makes a lot of sense.
That's such a good way to put it together. We actually have a question from the audience, so I'm just going to bring that up. So Amy is wondering, follow your dreams and your goals. Is that your overall message for those that just started, that are just starting out? Persistence for your passion?
You know what? But I would say, bear in mind that as you grow and your life changes, those goals are going to change. They're going to change completely. And I think the reason I'm as happy as I am is I never dug in. I always said, okay, I don't know that this is ideal. I mean, I think everything I've done brings me to this place. So I would say, sure, start out by following that, but start out by getting a job. And anyone who's listening, who's, worked with me knows that my biggest recommendation right out of school is get a job. And I promise everyone they'll find something. It may be the world's worst job, but it'll get you to the next one.
Yep.
I mean, your life is building a resume, and not a literal resume. I haven't had a resume in years, but it's building who you are so that you make the best friends ultimately, and you find the best partner for life, and you find the career you love, and you live in an environment you love with people you want to be around. And I just think everything you do brings you to that point. So I think passions are great. Never lose them. But sometimes just listen to what you're hearing from people, and think about how you feel when you're done at the end of a day. And if this is really where you want to be, and you may, be open, always be open to something, to try something, especially young people. You have a whole life ahead of you. I still feel that way at this stage of life. I don't know what the next chapter will be.
Mhm.
I've taken in a partner. We're working together. I don't know how much longer I have, the business has, any of us has. So I just want to always be open to change and something magical coming along.
That's beautiful. Thanks for the great question, Amy.
Thanks for the question. And Gwen, thanks for sharing that. And I think one thing that stuck out to me that you said so far is that it just seems like you're someone I don't think you're such a humble person still. Like, you don't have any ego, you don't have any arrogance, you're just learning. And I just feel like with all that you've achieved so far, you're still so humble and you don't have any ego or anything like that. Would you say that's a success to being a better person overall? Like, never have any ego, never have any arrogance?
Well, that's very kind of you to say. And I believe to some degree you're right, but even that's a journey,
Right.
because you spend so much of your life competing and trying to get ahead. And I've never been competitive. I don't play any sports. I don't do anything athletic. I just don't. I have a trainer who makes my body work. But other than that, unless someone says to me, okay, now sit-ups, push-ups, I look and I think, why would I do that? That looks incredibly horrible to me. But I don't compete with people. I compete with myself. And I think that creates a lot less friction, a lot less disappointment. And look, I do want to be the best I can be. I want everyone to walk away from knowing me, meeting me, talking to me, feeling that I brought something to it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't generally, although it's hard to believe, need to talk about myself. I mean, this is a different situation. I want to hear about other people. I don't learn anything. The only time I talk a lot is if I'm at a dinner party, seated next to an inordinately boring person. Then I say things that I think are really funny just to make myself laugh. And I would say, in all honesty, and I do that. If I'm stuck next to somebody and it's insufferable, I just say things I find funny. And then I laugh at myself. And then I say another funny thing because it's reinforced. But otherwise, I want to hear what everyone else has to say. I think that's how you grow, and that's how you're a better citizen of this planet. Look, I think these are stressful times. As I've mentioned to clients who may be listening in, I don't really talk about politics with clients. I don't talk about who I'd vote for. I don't think it's appropriate. But I think these are inordinately stressful times, and I think it's a time where we have to think about each other. And those of us who are fortunate, who do have cows in the backyard, although I don't know that that's that aspirational for a lot of people, have to think about the people who, don't know where they're going to sleep the next night. And that weighs on me. It weighs on me that I need to be there for so many other people because I have that to bring. It's not unlike, though, young people job hunting. And it goes back to Amy's question. Figure out where you bring value. And I've thought about that more and more the past few years, particularly with young people when I mentor them, because nobody cares that it's the job you're dying for. Frankly, they just don't care. Maybe your parents care. Nobody else cares. And nor do they necessarily care that you're the best coder if everybody else applying to, Yahoo or Google is a great coder. Where do you bring value? Where uniquely can you walk in the door and bring something to that company or that person or that department?
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that I keep learning. I mean, I know that when I'm invited on boards, I chair the board of She's the First, an organization that many people on the U of R campus know because we have a campus chapter, and it's a national organization, and we empower girls in low-income countries by making them the first to go to high school. But I go on boards and I do that because I know that my value is mentoring, but fundraising. You know, I can show people, not that I can make people give money, although it may feel that way to many people, but that I can provide that opportunity to people to make that difference in the world, to educate these young women to be the next generation. And that thrills me. That thrills me. That's not about me. I rarely argue about anything that's about me. I fight for other people. You know, it's the one thing that makes me angry. I don't have much of a temper is if I see somebody is being treated badly. I can't stand it. I can't stand it. It horrifies me, and I have a big mouth, and it's going to get me in trouble, but I feel like I have to step in and do something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Am I getting you boys tongue-tied?
No, we're like, I don't know, this has been very inspiring so far, and I just love how you like care so much about other people and you want to fight, you're fighting for them, and that She's the First. Like I saw one of the videos on YouTube, and it was like a 7-minute video at this conference, and you were the speaker. It was really cool just to hear, and just all the things you believe in and just standing for them. It was amazing, and we'll touch upon more on that in a bit. But Sid, I think you have something for us right now.
Yeah, sure. So we usually start off with the rapid fire to like build up the energy, but I think there's so much like excitement and energy and enthusiasm already. So I don't know how this is gonna go, but I'm still super excited to find out more about you, Gwen. So this is questions from William. William is Shafuz and I's boss. We also call it the rapid fire. So the first question is, tell us something not many people know about you.
There's so little left. What is something? When I was a kid, I poured a bottle of peroxide on my hair to be a redhead.
Did it work?
I was ecstatic for doing it because I made everyone else do it after I did it. Yeah, they kicked me out of summer camp, but it worked. It turned a revolting shade of red. I was 12 years old.
Wow.
One of my finer moments.
That's so funny. You should have put that on your resume. That's
no one ever asked.
The salesperson said, yeah, that's really funny. All right, the next one. Gwen, your favorite travel destination overall?
My favorite what?
Travel destination.
Paris.
Paris?
It's never changed. You know, I majored in French, had to get to Paris when my husband and I went on our honeymoon. We went to Paris, and the last trip we took, it was his 85th birthday, and I planned a surprise party. We went to Paris for a month, and people came from all over the world, and Paris still has my heart.
Good to know.
Right.
Cool.
And what's the best piece of advice you've received?
Oh. Wow.
Anything that comes to your mind.
You know what? Well, okay, two. Both a long time ago when I was in therapy. The first one was when some guy who I had my heart set on just had no interest in me, and I bemoaned it to the therapist. I couldn't figure out why this guy didn't like me. And he said, maybe he just doesn't like brunettes. And I thought that was a sort of apocryphal line about life in general. Maybe he just doesn't like brunettes. The second one, also in therapy, also when I was young and dating, you could tell those were tough years for everybody. And I remember saying, and that's probably when I was a bit too outgoing, although hard to imagine there was a difference, but it didn't present as humbly as it does now. And I said to him, I wasn't getting where I wanted with someone. And I remember saying to my therapist, but I have to be me. You know, there was that, I got to be me. And he said, how's that working for you? And I think that was actually seminal in learning to tone it down, to sort of modify my behavior based on the circumstances and, you know, figure out what I needed and how to best get it. Wow. How's that? Two. And a
Yeah,
good recommendation for therapy if you need it.
that's great.
Yeah. Sid, you're up, right?
No, I just asked my question, Shafuz.
Sorry. Okay.
Oh, come on, guys.
Sorry about that, Sid.
These are
Okay.
fun.
Cool. Next question, Gwen. What's your hidden talent? Like any hidden talent that you might have. Like, what would you say?
Like the macrame thing or the building model airplanes. Oh, I know. I know the words to every rock and roll song from the 50s and 60s. I don't know who sang them. I may not know the title, but if I hear the first few bars of the melody, I know all the words. Now, one might suggest that's not a great talent, but it is to me and people of my generation.
Okay.
Wow.
You're underwhelmed by that answer, I can tell. That's all I can think of.
All right. We'll put that there. That's still pretty cool. All right, Sid.
The best I do.
Gwen, what is one thing that you would put on your bucket list?
You know, it's interesting. My husband and I had a bucket list on travel. And fortunately, before he passed away a year ago, we got to the last of them. So what's left on my bucket list? Oh, you know, when all is said and done, I want there to be 1 million people who say she was the best friend I ever had. I want the world to be full of young people. I want the world to be full of people I had an impact on. I do. That's really it. There's nothing material on my bucket list. The things I don't have, I don't want. You know, if I want them, I kind of figure out how to get them. I just want the world to be a better place because I was here.
Wow.
And don't ever let them take the name off the Green Center.
Anyone from
And
the
tell
group
them all about
listening?
me. You know, tell your children about me. Tell your grandchildren about me, that I care deeply.
Yeah,
That's beautiful.
that's beautiful, Gwen. Yeah, and I know, like, I think there are people from Career Center tuning in right now, so I think they got the message. You don't mess with the green name. Right. Okay. Next one, Gwen. An embarrassing moment at work that would be okay to share, like an embarrassing moment that's
Oh
at
yeah.
work.
Oh no, so many. So many.
Okay.
I'll tell you one I
Top one.
think about. There's one I think about a lot. When I first joined the firm before this one, and I went in there the first day, I'd come from another firm. It's not a glamorous way. Within New York City, the way it works in my line of business is you resign and you are shown the door. So you have to plan on it because you have clients and they have to know you're leaving and they're not going to reach you. And if they want to do a trade, they have to know where you are. So it's not glamorous. I left with a colleague. We literally gave notice back to back, left together, took the subway to our next place of employment. I got there, and instead of having a little office, I was in a great big boardroom, which is not unusual for my business. But it was the middle of winter, and I was wearing a fur coat. And I remember thinking, I have no place to hang my fur coat. Where am I going to hang my fur coat? And the president of the company, whom I knew from other charities, called me into his office to greet me and say, how are you doing? How's it going? And I remember I went in and said, if you really want to know, I need a place to hang my fur coat. And for some reason that has stayed with me as, could you have said something stupider or more insignificant? The guy must have thought you were an idiot and wondered why on earth they hired you. And it probably wasn't the most embarrassing, but it stayed with me long enough to still embarrass me that I did that.
Meet the president.
And yet they found me a place in my fur coat. So, you know, it wasn't the worst thing I ever did.
I hope you're able to find a place for that fur coat after all.
Absolutely.
Oh God, that's pretty funny.
All right.
But for those who don't like fur, I don't wear it anymore. So
You don't wear it anymore.
All right, Mike, next
it's
question.
fun. I like this part.
Oh, wow. Well,
Okay, more interesting ones coming.
yeah, there's just 2 more left, but one interesting one is actually about the Career Center. So could you describe Joe Tastani in 3 words?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure he's listening in.
Enthusiastic, funny, and passionate.
That's very true.
And there's a story behind that.
Okay. All right. We're gonna.
Last one. You're up.
Okay, we're gonna do that. We're gonna share the story later. But okay, Gwen. Last question. Favorite co-host, Said or Sharfuz? Who's your favorite co-host?
Give me a break.
We have a whole leadership.
You
This
know
is
what?
serious stuff. We make the other person do something. We have a point tally right now. You gotta choose. You gotta choose, Gwen. You can't. You
No,
gotta.
I don't have to. See, here's the thing. I don't have to.
Okay, all right.
I don't have to.
Okay.
Other people may fall, but I don't have to. I love you both. Love you both.
All right, Gwen. Gwen just hit the question out of the park. Like Gwen doesn't care. All right, Gwen. We'll take 1 point each for that then. Thanks for loving us both equally.
Exactly. You have to split it. Life is like that sometimes. You have to split it.
Okay. I'm gonna low-key think you. I'm your favorite, but nah. We're just gonna go with that. I'll just pretend I won that round. But cool. Gwen, thank you so much for being a great sport. And I think we're gonna start off to a more interesting topic where we want to sort of get your thoughts more into the aspect of mentorship and something you really care about, which is building a legacy. And I think we're really curious to know is like, tell us a little bit about your work as a member of the trustee at UFR. Like, what do you like? What's your focus? What do you do? And what do you enjoy most about it?
You know, it's interesting because you're brought on the board for a number of reasons. Prior to this, there used to be an alumni council. It was called the Trustees Council, and I was chairman of it. And it was not unusual that the chairman of the Trustees Council would then kind of move up to the Board of Trustees. It happened for a few years, and then my year, it didn't happen. And it was sort of heartbreaking. I felt really badly. I thought, gee, I care so much, but I realized I don't have enormous resources. I'm inordinately generous. I give away what I have, but I don't have enough maybe to make it to the board. So I continued to stay engaged. And then I was invited on the board a year later, and I think they wanted to not make it be automatic. Or that's what they told me. Maybe they just had to think about me longer. And I went on and I realized that's when I had to learn things like people raise their hands when they want to speak. Again, I live in a world where you just shout it out, you know, and if you can't be heard, you shout it louder. So I really had to learn how to be on a board. It was a very new experience for me. And I also realized that there were so many smart, talented, caring people on that board. And I don't think I had been in a room before. I used to say whenever I meet someone from the U of R and I'd find out they were from the U of R, I think, of course they are. You know, they're everything I hold dear. So I just was with all these remarkable people, and I realized that there was a lot I didn't know, but there were a few things I knew really well. I mean, I am a fundraiser. Oops. I am one of the few people in the world who says they'd love to fundraise. I love to give people the opportunity to bring change. I just do. I grew up with that. My family was always involved in raising money. And although we didn't have any, we'd give away what we could. And then I realized that I cared deeply about students. You know, I don't have any children of my own. I just loved students. So I think fortunately, I was then put on the Student Life Committee and ultimately became chair of that, which was just my greatest thrill. And I went on the Development Committee, which has a lot to do with fundraising, and now I chair the annual fund. But the other thing was we did the capital campaign about 14 years ago. And when there's a capital campaign, I'm a believer that leadership costs money. It's the way I've always viewed life. You want to be a leader, it's going to cost you. You know, you don't just get to be a leader. You have to put your money where your mouth is, if you will. And so trustees had to be the first ones to commit to what they wanted to give to a capital campaign, which is not just annual giving. And Jack Krekel, who's been in advancement forever and is kind of my guy, came around and said, what matters to you the most? And I said, students and their careers. It was not even a question in my mind. So I'll tell you a funny story, which many people may not know. We worked out something so that the director would be the Gwen M. Greene director of the Career Center. And frankly, that didn't cost as much. seemed reasonable. And I started telling people, and everyone said, oh my God, your name's on the Career Center. And I'd say, not exactly. My name's on the person who runs the Career Center. And then I thought, you know what? I got to do it. And I called Jack back up and I said, what's it going to cost me to have my name on the Career Center? Because the thought of someone else doing it really upset me, because I knew that I had a passion that was unmatched in that area. I just knew it. I'd never heard anyone else talk about students and student life and student careers and mentoring the way I did. And so then I was able to do that back in, I think it was 2012. And that was such a proud moment. So I think my role on the board is I don't talk all the time. I've learned if I don't know anything, be quiet. And that's hard for me, because I'm dying to talk all the time, just to hear myself and say funny things. But if it's about fundraising and it's about students and careers and mentoring, I'm right out there. And I think that's my role on the board, is to kind of be that voice in people's ears and hopefully get them to see what I see.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I get free parking, sometimes.
When are you saying this is all for free parking?
Think about it. Yeah.
That's smart.
I have fees.
That's so funny. So
Yeah.
when you
When
mentioned
did
so
your
much
Jesus
about
go?
your when you've mentioned so much about your involvement with the University of Rochester, and also another student organization or another organization that you're really involved with is She's the First. This again falls into mentorship and other aspects. Do you want to tell us a little about your involvement with that, and what really motivates you to support this mission of theirs?
You know what I realized? One of the things that I've come to in the past few years, really, even more so, is I feel most strongly about the education space. We had a board chairman, Ed Hagem, dear friend of mine, very inspirational. I learned a lot from Ed. And he always said education is the key to everything. I think I've come to understand that without an education, you don't have a shot in the world. And so this organization, interestingly, I met the founder, Tammy Tibbetts, at a social gathering. I was involved with some women's organization in the city. And I met her and I heard about what she was doing. And a friend of mine had gone on the board. And I was just very taken with it. And I talked to her, and then it's not a normal way things happen. I was asked to be board chairman, actually, without having been on the board. And I was very dubious. I'd never chaired a board. And I reached out to Ed Hagem and said, do you think I can do it? Because I thought it's a big responsibility. It's not like being chair of your building you live in New York, or, I thought it's an important thing. Lives are at stake. Women's lives are at stake. Young women in low-income countries' lives are at stake. And can I do it when fundraising was really the part I knew? And I met with the founders, with Tammy and Kristen, and I fell in love with it. But I remember saying I wanted to go home and talk to my husband, who was my biggest support for the past 37 years before he passed away. And I said to him, do you think I can do it? He said, you can do anything you set your mind to. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do it. And I brought in Harish Nataraj, who is a U of R alum, he and his brother Naveen. And Harish was a good friend. I had mentored Harish. I brought him into She's the First because he is from India, from Chennai, where many of our alums are from. And he and his wife had been looking for a way to support education in India.
Yeah.
And we have a school, Shanti Bhavan, in India. And he said, oh my God, this sounds like something. He's now vice chairman of the board.
Wow.
And has been an amazing supporter. And he and his mom in India have gone to visit the school. So it just gave me an opportunity to really understand really the value of an education, because we talk about it, but we're kind of all the same. We all grew up in families. I mean, I'm first generation, but everybody my age is, we're just, it doesn't mean what it means now. Our parents just didn't have the resources, or our dads were off to war. So our parents didn't get to go to college. But to really see what first generation means, I endow a prize at the U of R for a senior first gen every year.
Wow.
And then I get to know them, and then I mentor them. In fact, there's a young man from 2019 who I'm working with. I've introduced him to my firm and to a lot of other people. And he won it that year. I just think it's so important. And then I got to go on a trip to Guatemala to meet with our girls there.
Wow.
And that just was the most extraordinary experience to see these young girls, you know, and in Guatemala, frankly, their options wouldn't have been as horrible as in some places in Africa. You know, they would have worked in the fields all their life. To see the pride their parents had, to see how they now want to go on to college, and many of them do. And they will be leaders. One day they will be the global leaders, these women, and we start them on that journey. We don't do bricks and mortar. We don't build schools, but we finance their education. I think there's, you know, it's right up there with the best things you can do for somebody. I endow a scholarship at the U of R. And this year, just because the numbers got a little mixed up, I'm doing a second one. So I now have a history of 6 young women, all of whom know each other. We do Zoom calls. I'm sure many of them are listening tonight. One of them just stayed in my apartment for 2 weeks so she could quarantine from Illinois to Rochester. Another one of them was in the city last summer and would stay in my apartment a couple of nights. I love them all. I just, you know, they're all my kids. I think the world is full of my kids, and you two will equally be my kids. And don't argue who mom loves better, you know? Both my kids.
Go ahead, hard science.
I think this is perfect. I love this. This was why we got you on the call, so you could call us your kids. We did everything we wanted to.
Don't embarrass me now. Make me proud. That's all I ask.
Yeah, Sid, the stakes are high now. We need to do better. We can go on. We can embarrass.
You know, all I ask actually of everybody is that when I send kids to you, you do the same thing for them that I do for you. That's all I want from anyone. You know, a generation of kids who help each other.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And speaking of your mentees, we have a comment from Talia. She just commented, "A great mentor, lucky to have."
She was the one I was talking about who was there last summer.
Oh, okay, yeah. So your mentees are actively listening into this live right now, and they're clearly you made an amazing impact in their lives, and I just love it. Like, it's just amazing because your legacy lives on through all of them. So all the amazing things each of them are doing is also a part of your legacy, and you're just multiplying the impact in different ways at the same time. And
I
that's
have
really
4 of them in Rochester. If only I could get there. I have a sophomore, Hannah Sattler. I have an entering freshman, Hannah Ben-Ami. I have Talia Kohavi, who has left New York, come back to Rochester for Masters in Public Health, and Sarah Guerin, who's working in the I-Zone. So I'm dying to get back up to Rochester and see my kids.
That's awesome, Gwen. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they all miss you as well, and they would, they definitely want to excited to see you. I think, Gwen, I think so. This is a question. I guess so. Like from that, I guess I'm curious to ask you that. So much of what you do is building a legacy. So what does building a legacy mean to you? And what would you tell other students or recent grads on how they can build their legacy, who also have the legacy mindset? Like personally, I do. I also want to build my own legacy. What would you say, like, to in that aspect?
You know, I don't know that I consciously thought about building a legacy. Okay. I grew up just knowing that you give back. When somebody does something for you, you give back. And so, you know, I started off with the U of R with a scholarship and then got more and more engaged. I think you build a legacy by teaching others to do the right thing. I do. You know, teach them to make this a better world, one person at a time. You can't start off with this global notion. I'm going to start building my legacy and imagine it like a Lego game, you know, that you're just building up things. That was good. I don't even know what Legos are, but I know that's a good image for young people. But you build a legacy by building a foundation. You start to say, you know, who needs my help? Who's done something for me? Who's struggling? Where can I make a difference? What can I do better? And it's often really little things. You know, it's realizing somebody just needs a break, or pick up a tab at dinner for somebody who you think is maybe struggling a little bit, or You know, if you got a lot of something, give one away, or if you got a car, offer people a ride who might not otherwise have a ride. You know, you build on it by doing things that people think, wow, somebody cares. I think you just want to show people that somebody cares. You know, there are a lot of people out there and nobody cares about them. I mean, so you do it on so many levels. You do it for the people really close to you, but you just do it sometimes for a stranger. I went to dinner the other day with somebody, and she had food left over, and she took my niece, and she took food with her, and then we were out, and I said something about, where's your food? And she said, oh, I saw a homeless person, I gave him the food. You know, just think about someone other than yourself. I mean, that's what life is about. It's not all about you, and you'll be better for it. You know, for me, it comes back when kids say, I remember the first time a client sent me a photo of the house and said, this is a house that Gwen built. Or people send me photos of their kids graduating college and say, thank you. You helped us fund that education. I mean, that's the best gift I can get. You know, that's really what makes a difference. Moms write letters and say, thank you for what you do for my kid. All those things mean the world to me. I mean, I like to be thanked, but I'm still happy doing it. But that's icing on the cake, because that's how I know that it really had an impact.
Absolutely. No, I think that was that definitely makes sense. And I think it's just how you said, the little things that matter, and just start from there and just try to contribute and just caring. I think that's what really matters. And I know, Gwen, we promised 1 hour and we are a little bit over time, but we are not going to take more of your evening tonight. But I think, Sid, should we go towards that video segment?
Yep. Let's Gwen, we would like you to leave a message for the students at Rochester who are currently either graduating in the next class year, or who are just recently graduated.
Or like the first years who
from you about advice that you would like to share with them.
Do you want me to do a video for the next gen?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So we're going to go off the screen, right, Sid? Yeah, we're going to go up the screen, and you could just think about the first years who are just moving in, and the people who are also graduating, especially with COVID and their life being so different now. So any message, like your thoughts together you want to share?
A couple thousand people for a couple thousand students.
Yep.
And even those working remotely, sure.
Yes, yeah. So,
my biggest audience yet.
So we're gonna both disappear from the screen and give the screen to you. So it's gonna be you for the next couple of minutes. 1 minute. I said on your mark.
How long?
Just 1 minute is fine.
Okay. I want to reach out to all of you at the U of R. I am so proud to be a part of that great institution, but I'm even prouder of you. These are challenging times. This is not the freshman year you anticipated. It's not the sophomore, junior year, or the senior year. We don't know what'll happen at graduation, but we as trustees, and I as Gwen Greene, can't be more pleased that you're joining us, that you're with us, however you're finding to do it. Do well, stay involved. Meliora, and I love you all. Thanks for being part of this great university.
Awesome.
That was beautiful. I love the ending. Meliora is my go-to statement. Every email signature is usually Meliora.
Me too.
That is awesome. All right, Gwen. We want to thank you so much for your time today. I know you're probably really busy. I just quickly wanted to pull up a photo so that you remember us from.
I think so. This is our biggest
Oh, the Gwennies.
Yep.
Yeah, back in 2017, right, Sid? Or 2018?
This is 2017, 2018. I think it was 2018. It was right before I graduated.
Oh my God, that's wonderful.
Yep.
Yeah, so this was because of the entrepreneurship club me and Sid started. So that was one of the more, and we were super excited
oh my
about.
Gosh.
Yep. I know, Gwen, you're probably thinking I had a lot of weight on me. I trimmed down a little bit.
That's marvelous. Oh,
Yeah.
I love seeing that. I've never seen that photo.
Yep.
I love that.
And then there's another one, which was like me saying that, oh, this is the last time, like, we're probably never going to see you again, so let's just do something crazy. So we went all out.
Memorable.
Yeah, so
Those are great. Oh, I can't thank you. Oh, there's Joe. Aw.
So that award, that crest, is still with the current e-board president of the club right now. We've been passing it on to the next e-board, till the next e-board.
Aw, that's marvelous.
And that meant a lot to us. We wanted to bring it up.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you shared that. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for having that impact in our life. It was an amazing day. It was one of our most memorable days.
Aw, me
yeah.
too. I love the Gwennies. I was so sorry to miss it this year.
Absolutely. There's gonna be a next one next year, and
Always.
we're all gonna be.
Always.
There will be, and there'll be, and all these people you're gonna be impacting so much positively as well. That's great. I think, Gwen, we asked you thanks for sharing all that with us, and I feel like there's so many things we uncovered. Like, what's what would you, because I think one question is like, I'm personally curious about is like, just being Meliora and ever better. And I don't know, Sid, if this could be like, I know we're out of time, but like, I don't know, what would you tell people like trying to be ever better or Meliora, like for all the UFR students, like what would you tell them? Just like how can we be ever better in our life? What's your guidance there?
Wow. I would say think about someone other than yourself. Just sort of step aside, think about humility. Think how lucky all of us are that we can do something like this tonight. Look at all those U of R students who couldn't even go home in the spring because they had no home to go to, or they couldn't get to another country, or there's no internet where they live. And just think there's always someone who needs more than you. I'll tell you something. My mother passed away. It was in December several years ago. And she struggled as a widow. I helped out, and she always worked. And after she passed away, I got all of her December bank statements. She had written probably 25 year-end checks to anyone who asked. It was clear. Some of them were modest. She didn't have a lot of money, maybe $5, $10. But I knew that no matter who mentioned a cause, my mother would write a check. That's always stayed with me. I thought, you know what? There's always someone who needs it more than you do. And just be mindful of that in everything you do. Just try and always be mindful, whether it's holding a door for somebody or letting them in front of you in line, or, tipping large in this period of time, because that those restaurant workers, some of them were laid off or furloughed and they barely can make ends meet. Just think, how much do you need to hold on to that 50 cents or $1 or $10 versus what it might mean in the life of someone else. And always think that, don't let yourself forget that you're one of the lucky ones.
Yeah, absolutely. As an international student, I definitely feel that as well a lot of times. So definitely, thanks for sharing it like that. I think and the more you think about it, that's how you can actually really make an impact for others around you. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's your legacy. That's how you build a legacy, because it feels good. And you leave and you think that was the right thing to do. Maybe I didn't want to, and did I really have to? I could have used that. And then you think, I changed their life. It's the right thing to do. And now more than ever. I mean, that phrase "now more than ever" is used a lot, but now more than ever is when that phrase ought to be used a lot. I think about it all the time, no matter who I see and what I can do. I just think, they need it more than you do, or they need to know people care.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to know that. They don't all have parents and siblings and teachers and bosses who reinforce it. Sometimes they don't have anyone to tell them that they're terrific. And I do that a lot with people. I thank everybody for everything.
That's beautiful.
We need that in our lives.
Yeah.
Gwen, is there a book about you that we could read? I think you have so much knowledge and so much valuable information that I think is just not coverable in a conversation like this. I think if there's no book, I think we should get one written about you. If there is, then I need to buy a couple of copies.
No, I've been in books, but they're all photos of, the U of R did one at my 50th reunion. People have done one on my house. No, there's nothing. But it's interesting because I see as the years go on, I write well and I like telling my story. I hope it'll inspire people to, do better at Meliora. So there's a project. My kids, start your book. Then we can have book clubs. Then we can talk about my book.
Yeah. This is definitely like
Never
how
let go. You're in my life forever now.
that's amazing. So we definitely need that book. Okay, we can start brainstorming ideas about the name of the book, but we'll follow up with you on that.
We have to work on the naming thing. We have to get a little better on the naming.
Okay, yeah. We're growing and learning. We're trying and we're learning. Thanks for guiding us with that as well. It's been
Ever better.
Ever better. Yeah, but yeah, Sid, I think we're way past our time. So
I'm gonna roll up the curtains. So
all right, thank you so much. It was a privilege to do this.
thank you so much, Gwen. I mean, it's absolutely an honor. I've worked at the Career Center. I've experienced everything that you've contributed to at the University of Rochester, and it's been absolutely amazing. It's literally, I think I've personally never engaged with an alumni that's so active and contributing so much to the university. So it's really, really eye-opening. And also, I think it really impacts a lot of people that we don't really see that often. So it's difficult to evaluate what you've been working on and how it's impacting people, but it definitely is. And we can speak from a student's perspective, like the Gwennies, the experience there that we've had, me working at the Career Center, it's been absolutely amazing. So I can't thank you enough for that.
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Cheers.
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 Stay safe, everybody.
Thank you so much, Gwen. I know we're over time, but just quickly, is there any way for people to get in touch with you? I haven't seen you on social media or anything.
There's a reason, because I'm not on social media.
You're not on social media?
They
Okay.
can reach out to me. Yes, it's gwengreen6@gmail.com.
Okay, perfect. We'll drop that in the comments, but thank you once again. Thanks everyone for attending. This has been absolutely awesome. And we'll catch you next time.
You bet. I hope so. Take care, everybody. Have a good rest of summer. Bye-bye.
Bye, Gwen.
Thanks so much for watching, guys. Make sure to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video and consider subscribing to receive a notification next time we post. Catch you next time.
Wow.
Okay. Like this?
My God.
Oh.
My God.